If you've ever listened to your live stream and thought, why does the live stream sound so bad when the house mix sounded so good? This video will help you understand why and what you can do about it. And I'm not just going to tell you to spend tens of thousands of dollars on new equipment and to hire a full broadcast team, because I know that you may or may not have the budget for that. So stick around for the whole video, because I'll be giving you actionable advice that you can apply regardless of the setup you're working with. Thanks to PreSonus and Guitar Center for sponsoring this video and sending me the PreSonus Studio Live SE16 digital mixing console so I can demonstrate some of the tips I'm about to share with you. You can find links to this mixer in the show notes below. And of course, we're going to keep this video educational, so the tips I'll share with you here will be helpful no matter which system you're already using. So, why do your live stream mixes sound bad, and how can you make them sound better? Well, first, let's compare the experience of our listeners, because there's a difference between listening to a show live in the venue versus tuning in to a live stream remotely. And understanding how these two audiences experience the event differently will help us to make a plan to cater the mix to suit each audience. The most important difference to keep in mind is that the mix you provide to the live audience inside the venue should serve as sound reinforcement, while the mix you provide to the remote live stream audience should serve as sound reproduction. These two are related, yes, but each one requires a different mindset to get right. Sound reinforcement for the audience inside the venue is all about complementing or augmenting the sound that's coming from the stage. There will be elements of the mix that can already be heard without the PA system, such as the drums, for example. Therefore, when mixing sound for reinforcement, you should always ask yourself, what do I need to add to make this mix sound more balanced and clear? I made a full video on the importance of reducing stage volume, especially in smaller venues, as you can't really use a PA system to turn things down. With that said, if possible, make sure the loudest instruments on stage, the drums, the guitar amps, etc., aren't overly loud. And when setting up your mix with the PA, be sure not to reinforce anything that's already loud enough. Depending on the size of the venue, you might end up putting microphones on everything and sending every microphone to the PA, but the amount of each instrument you choose to send to the PA should be based on what you're hearing from the stage already. And that means the house mix may not sound as intended when listened to in isolation. That brings me to the mix you'll provide for the remote live stream audience. In this case, the goal of the mix is sound reproduction. The live stream audience, of course, won't be hearing anything from the stage directly. Therefore, the house mix that you created for the live audience won't translate properly over the live stream. Think about it. The house mix is likely to contain a good amount of the quietest elements that can't be heard directly from the stage, such as the vocals, the keys, the acoustic guitars, etc. At the same time, the house mix likely contains only a very small amount of drums, electric guitars, and other instruments that require very little reinforcement. That leaves your live stream audience with a mix that doesn't fully reproduce the mix as a whole. We're going to talk about how you can fix this by the end of the video, but first, let's talk about another difference to keep in mind. Think about the experience of listening to a live show that switches between live music and spoken word presentations from an MC or from a pastor. Whose mic is louder? The vocalist or the presenters? Well, the vocalist's mic will need to be heard over the full band, while the presenter's mic will usually be heard in isolation. And generally speaking, the music portions of the event will be considerably louder than the spoken word portions. Therefore, the sound at the venue will have a very wide dynamic range, a vast difference between the quietest and loudest portions of the show. For the people at the show, this wide dynamic range will feel natural and comfortable. There's usually not much noise in the room when the presenter is talking, and even if there is a baby crying in the back row or an HVAC system blowing in the background, the cocktail party effect allows the audience members in the room to tune out those distractions and adaptively listen to the person speaking. Contrast that to the experience of the remote audience, listening to all of this on a TV or a smartphone. They may be listening in a noisy environment themselves, and even if they're in a quiet environment, it can be pretty annoying when you have to constantly turn up the volume of the live stream every time the presenter speaks, just to turn it down again when the music starts. So, difference number 2 is dynamic range. You'll generally deliver a less dynamic mix to the remote audience compared to the mix you deliver to the live audience in the room. We'll get to how you can accomplish that in a minute. Next, I want to talk about the third difference we should consider. The final key difference I want to focus on is ambiance. The audience in the room not only hears the direct sound from the instruments on stage, but they also hear indirect sound reflected back to them from the walls and ceilings of the venue. Beyond that, they also hear other audience members. And for live events, where the sense of community and connection is a large part of the appeal, it's a nice touch if you can give the remote audience that same feeling that they aren't experiencing this event alone. So let's talk about the different ways you can set up a live stream mix to compensate for these differences and provide a high quality, immersive experience for the in-person and remote audiences. I'm going to walk you through 5 levels of setting up a live stream mix, starting with the most basic and low budget option. And as you'll see, each level improves your ability to optimize the mix for both audiences. But at the end of the day, you've got to work with the equipment and the personnel you've got, and even small tweaks can make a big difference. Level 1 is to simply route the house mix that feeds your main PA to the live stream device. This could be done with Y cables that split the signal, or by using a subgroup output that mimics the main mix. Obviously, this is the worst case scenario, as you won't be able to address the needs of each audience independently. That usually means you'll need to fully prioritize one experience over the other, or it means you'll have to split the difference and make sacrifices in each mix for the benefit of the other. With that said, here are some things you can do to improve your live stream mix, even if you're restricted to working within level 1, with the same mix feeding both the live and remote audiences. Number 1, do what you can to reduce stage volume. That could mean using an electronic drum kit, or placing the drums in an isolation booth or behind a barrier. It could mean simply playing the drums more quietly, or turning down the guitar amplifier and the other loud instruments on stage. As the stage volume decreases, you'll be able to send more elements to the speakers without overpowering the live audience. In other words, with a low stage volume, even the house mix becomes a lot more about sound reproduction than sound reinforcement. Therefore, the house mix will be more appropriate for those tuning in to the live stream. Depending on the system you're using, you could potentially take this one step further by adding in a room EQ on the PA signal path while leaving the live stream signal path unchanged. There are 2 basic ways to do this. Number 1 would be to place an outboard EQ just before the inputs of the amplifier, or to use the amplifier's built-in DSP, if that's an option. This EQ could be used to counteract some of the room's acoustic characteristics by cutting out some resonant frequencies, for example. And because it only affects the signal going to the room, that will allow you to use the input channel strip settings to address input-specific problems rather than room-specific problems, which will hopefully already be handled by the room EQ. Another way to do this on some mixers, including the Persona Studio Live consoles, is to use a matrix mix. You might already be familiar with aux mixes, which allow you to make a mix that is separate from the main mix that feeds the speakers. A matrix mix is similar, but it allows you to make a mix of mixes. Here's an analogy that my mentor shared with me. Think of the individual input channels, like kick, snare, lead vocal, etc., as passengers boarding a bus or a car. The individual passengers are like the input channels, and the individual vehicles are like the auxes. A matrix is akin to a ferry that can transport several vehicles, a mix of mixes, a vehicle carrying other vehicles. And some matrices, including the matrices on the console I have here, can include mixes or individual channels, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. If you're working with a mixer that happens to have a matrix feature, you can route the main mix to a stereo matrix, which feeds your PA system, and also route the main mix to another stereo matrix dedicated to the live stream. And on this mixer, that gives you a separate EQ, delay, compressor, and limiter for each matrix. In its simplest form, this gives you the same mix feeding two pairs of outputs with unique processing dedicated to each destination. But level 2 takes this a step further. Let's unpack how matrices, auxes, and subgroups can be used in more advanced ways to create separate mixes for the in-house audience and the remote audience. I think the PreSonus Studio Live console is a perfect example for this discussion, because every mix on this mixer can be either an aux, a subgroup, or a matrix. Let me explain the differences, keeping in mind that each of these is essentially a mix that can be routed within the mixer, patched to a physical output, or patched through USB into a computer, as desired. In general, a matrix is like an aux, but you can send auxes to a matrix and can typically only send inputs to an aux. We've already covered that. The differentiating characteristic of an aux mix compared to a subgroup is that an aux mix has a variable send on each channel, allowing you to determine how much of a particular input goes to the aux mix. Meanwhile, a subgroup is usually a simple on or off switch, with the level following the channel fader. If I want to send channels to a subgroup, I go to the channel and I toggle on subgroup 1 switch, for example. And now the channel will be sent to the subgroup at the level determined by its fader. This is similar to how the main mix works. I can toggle the main mix assign button and determine the level with the channel fader. So if I wanted a channel to go to subgroup 1 and the main mix, I'd turn both switches on and use the fader. And if I wanted to send a channel to only subgroup 1 and not the main mix, I'd just toggle off the main assign switch and keep the subgroup 1 switch engaged, still controlling the level with the channel fader. But if I want to send a channel to the main mix and a separate mix at different levels, I could use an aux mix instead. Now, I determine how much I send to the main mix using the channel fader, and determine how much of that input goes to the aux mix by using the aux send. And finally, I could use a matrix to mix together a bit of each subgroup, each aux mix, a little bit of the main mix, or even individual channels. There's one more detail you should understand here: the difference between a pre and a post fader send. This determines where in the signal chain the signal is sent out to the aux or matrix you're routing it to, which is very important, so listen closely. This mixer allows you to specify where the channel send is for each aux and matrix send: pre-1, pre-2, and post. Many consoles only provide pre and post, but the additional flexibility of the sends on this console will help make those more basic options even more clear. Pre-1 places the send directly after the polarity invert, high pass filter, and gate. So if I apply EQ or compression to a channel, those effects will be included in the main mix, but will not be included in any submix that's set to pre-1. Also, the level of the send will not be impacted by the channel fader. Pre-2 places the send after all of the channel processing, but before the fader. So any EQ or compression will be applied to both the main mix and the mixes set to pre-2. However, the fader still won't impact the level set to the submixes. Finally, post places the send after all of it, the channel processing and the fader. This allows me to automatically reflect any changes I make to this channel in the main mix across all of the submixes that are set to post. Note that these selections are made for each mix. So if I set aux 7 to post, every aux 7 send on every input channel will be post fader. Now, I know this is a lot of information. In fact, when I was writing this video, I thought to myself, wow, this is a lot, but it's going to be a great video for those who stick with me. So if you're one of those people who's still with me, hit the like button, leave a comment letting me know you're still here, and consider taking the Audio University exam to see where you stand. I can tell you're serious as a student if you're still here, and I want to help you get better. So you can find a link to the exam in the show notes below, or by going to audiouniversityonline.com/exam. So what does all of this mean for making a live stream mix? Well, it means there are hundreds of ways to set it up, but here are some quick examples of how you could do it. The simplest way to do this without needing a matrix would be to use an aux mix to feed the live stream. And I could set the aux that feeds the live stream to pre-2 if I wanted to include the channel processing for each input, but wanted to set the level going to the live stream independently from the main mix. Then I'd be building two completely separate mixes that would share the channel settings like high pass filter, gate, EQ, and compression. But what I'd probably do to make my life easier would be to set the aux that feeds the live stream to post fader, which would allow me to make small changes to the main mix that would automatically be reflected to the live stream mix, such as bringing up a guitar during a solo or writing a vocal channel. And just because it's set to post fader doesn't mean it has to be the same level. It just means the aux level will be impacted by the main fader level. If the aux send is set to unity, or the 0 dB mark, then yes, the level will be the same as in the main mix. But if I know I want more presenter mic going to the live stream mix than I want going to the main in-house mix, I can boost the aux send to the live stream a bit higher than the unity mark and still make relative adjustments using the main fader. If you've got a mixer that has aux sends but doesn't have a matrix, then this could be a good option. However, let's say we've already got the matrices set up as I explained before, with the main mix going to a matrix 1 and 2 to feed the stereo PA system, and the main mix going to a stereo matrix 3 and 4 to feed the live stream. I'm going to add another layer here by creating an aux mix and labeling it live stream ads for the sake of understanding what this is going to do. I'll make this aux mix post fader so the changes I make to the main mix will be reflected. Then I'll route that live stream ads mix to matrix 3 and 4, which feeds our live stream, but I won't send it to matrix 1 and 2 that feeds our PA. Now I have a foundation for the mix that's feeding our live stream matrix. This is the main mix, and I can add other elements beyond that to the live stream using this new aux. Maybe I've already got the presenter mics in the main mix at a level based on what's needed in the room, but I want to add a bit more to the live stream so it isn't as dynamic, making sure the music and presenters are at a more consistent level throughout the live stream. With this live stream ads aux mix set up and routed to our live stream matrix, I can go to the presenter mic channels and add some more directly to the live stream ads aux mix. Or maybe I've already got some reverb in the main mix based on what's needed in the room, but I want to add more to the live stream because those listeners won't be hearing the natural reverberation within the venue. Similarly, I just add some more of the reverb effects return channel to my live stream ads mix, and that's already routed to our live stream matrix. Sending additional reverb like this will help add a spatial element to what the live stream audience is hearing, which accounts for that difference in ambiance that we discussed at the beginning of the video. Another way to do this is to connect a stereo pair of microphones that are pointed at the audience. These will pick up not only the reverb in the space, but also the applause from the audience, so the live stream is even more immersive. But let's think about this for a second. We definitely don't want the audience mics sent to the main mix, because that would just muddy up the house mix and would probably increase the chances of microphone feedback. In this case, let's just assign any element we want in the live stream mix only to a subgroup, which I'll call live stream only, and then assign that subgroup to our live stream matrix. This live stream only subgroup could include the audience mics. It could include royalty-free music that can be live streamed during breaks without breaking copyright laws, or anything else we want in the live stream but not in the house mix. I just need to go to those channels and make sure that they're routed to the live stream only subgroup and not to the main mix. So hopefully you're getting an idea of how each of these different types of mixes can be used. And if you've got another idea, leave a comment below. Later in the video, I'll give you some options for how to ensure this mix will sound good even when one person is responsible for mixing both mixes at the same time. But if possible, having a front of house engineer and a dedicated live stream engineer will make for the best sounding mixes, both in-house and on the live stream. And this brings us to levels 3, 4, and 5. For levels 1 and 2, we used one mixing console to create two mixes, one for the in-house audience and one for the live stream audience. But what if you have another person to mix audio for the live stream while you focus on mixing for the room? Well, if you do have another person that can be dedicated to mixing the live stream, here are a few ways you can set that up. For level 3, let's say you've got a separate mixer that only has a few channels. You could create a submix on the front of house console that feeds groups of instruments to that secondary mixer. You won't necessarily be sending the kick drum channel and the snare drum channel separately to that secondary mixer, but rather a group of channels that contains all of the drums, and a group that contains all of the background vocal channels, and so on. This is even better when you've already got groups set up for the front of house mix, because then it's just a matter of routing those groups to a physical output and sending it to the secondary mixer. In the PreSonus ecosystem, you could also connect this mixer, the Studio Live SE16, and a secondary monitor mixer, like the EarMix 16M, to an AVB network switch, and give access to a select number of channels that could be mixed by someone else with limited controls. And depending on the system you're using, there may be a similar option available to you. But in each of these cases, you'll still be limited to a subgroup of channels sent between mixers. And if you have a less experienced live stream mix engineer, that could actually be a good thing. However, levels 4 and 5 would be ideal if you have experienced mix engineers, as it would give them full control to create a custom mix in a DAW with access to all of the inputs. Level 4 opens the door to a much more advanced and customizable live stream mix by giving the person mixing the live stream access to individual channels directly in a DAW session. There are a few ways that you could set this up. One option would be to connect the mixer to a computer via USB. In the case of the PreSonus Studio Live SE16 that I have right here, that would allow up to 64 channels into the DAW. Therefore, we could choose to send all 32 input channels to separate tracks within a DAW session and create a live stream mix using the buses and plugins within the DAW. This could potentially require a lot of CPU resources, which might require a higher buffer size and therefore create more latency. But this additional latency would only apply to the live stream, which will already reach the remote audience with considerable lag, so the additional latency wouldn't really be a problem. The DAW mix could be set up with a keyboard and mouse, yes, but alternatively, if you wanted to have physical faders and knobs for controlling the DAW mix, you could use a DAW control surface, like the PreSonus Fader Port 16. This isn't a full mixer with inputs and outputs, but it does work seamlessly with many DAWs to control the settings within the software. On the Studio Live SE16 console I've been using, there's actually a DAW button that would allow me to quickly toggle back and forth between the mixer controls for the in-house mix and the DAW control for the live stream mix. I expect this would work particularly well on Studio One and Fender Studio Pro, but the manual says this could work well with Logic and Pro Tools as well. Level 5 builds upon the DAW option I just described in Level 4, but rather than a DAW and a USB connection, we could utilize a completely separate and fully functional mixer located in another area of the building. Being in another area would offer a tremendous benefit, as you'd be able to monitor the live stream mix in isolation without being subjected to the noisy venue environment. For this solution, you could use an analog splitter to split all of the mic channels between the two mixers, but many modern consoles, like the Studio Live mixer that I've been showing you throughout this video, have digital connections for use with stage boxes, whether they operate on AVB, Dante, or another digital protocol. In the case of the PreSonus mixers, we could use an AVB stage box, like the NSB 3216. By connecting the stage box and the two consoles to an AVB switch, you'd have the ability to route all inputs to both consoles simultaneously. This is by far the most robust option because it includes two fully functional hardware mixing consoles, two skilled mixing engineers, and the extremely flexible routing available on an AVB network. As I mentioned a moment ago, you may struggle to monitor the live stream mix clearly if you're sitting at the front of house position, or anywhere in the venue for that matter. Even the best isolation headphones will allow some sound to bleed in, and that could result in mixing decisions that you wouldn't otherwise make if you were listening to the live stream mix only in an isolated room. For this reason, I highly recommend dedicating a separate person in a separate room with studio monitors for the live stream mix, as I described in the Level 5 setup. However, I fully recognize that that's not possible for everyone. So if you just have one person for mixing both the front of house and the live stream, here's a trick you can use to set up the live stream mix ahead of time so you can focus on the house mix during the show. During sound check, insert an SD card into the card slot on the mixer and record all of the inputs to separate tracks. Alternatively, use a USB connection to a DAW on your computer and record the sound check there. Then, after the musicians leave soundcheck, you'll still have the multi-track session there that can be played back through the console, sending each track to the appropriate input channel on the mixer. This gives you an opportunity to dial in the live stream mix without the band playing there in front of you. And as long as the preamp settings, instrument levels, mics, and mic positions stay the same, the mix should sound great during the actual show, without you really having to worry about it. Thanks again to PreSonus and Guitar Center for supporting the channel, and in the next video, I'll show you how to set up a digital mixer for the first time. I'll see you there.